Wow, today is a great one. My guest today, Adam Jackson, is the CEO and founder of Braintrust. It's an AI-based recruiting tool that some of the biggest companies in the world are using to screen candidates and do their interviewing process to get it down to the final choice before a human gets involved. But more than that, he talks about real-world applications of AI, and he talks about blockchain and how he raised money to fund this venture. This is one of many he has, using a token, meaning he gave up no equity during his fundraising. Amazing. The guy is also just down to earth. He's a dad at heart, and he's just all about action. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot during this interview because he explained things in very simple terms and in just a matter-of-fact approach. I really appreciated it. And this episode, of course, as always, is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. We turn your leads into paying customers. So if you own a brick and mortar fitness location, infrared sauna location, stretching concept, or similar, we can help you get your leads out of your pipeline into your studio so that you can sell them a membership or package and create a long-term customer. Check out ThriveMore Autopilot at thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. Now, enjoy this episode. On today's episode of the ThriveMore podcast, I have this pleasure of speaking with Adam Jackson. Adam is the CEO of Braintrust, the largest user-owned talent network revolutionizing hiring with Braintrust Air. That stands for AI Recruiter, the world's first and only end-to-end AI recruiting platform. It's trained with human insights and proprietary data, and Braintrust Air reduces the time to hire from months to just days, instantly matching you with pre-vetted qualified candidates and conducting the first round interview for you. It's trusted by hundreds of Fortune 1000 enterprises, including Nestle and Porsche, Atlassian, Goldman Sachs, and even Nike. Braintrust Air is making talent acquisition a lot easier for the professionals in recruiting, and it's saving companies hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in recruiting costs. Adam's also a serial entrepreneur, and we're going to talk about that because he's had several successful businesses, and he's an active investor, an angel investor in 45 companies. So we can learn more about that too, because so many of them are focused on technology and especially AI. And so we're going to take a deep dive into AI in real applications today, not just you should use ChatGPT, but real applications. So without further ado, Adam, welcome to the ThriveMore podcast.
Roger, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You betcha. You betcha. I've been looking forward to this interview because you, unlike many people that say, you need to use AI, and then when you ask them specifically how they're applying it, they say, well, I asked ChatGPT questions. You're actually leveraging it in a scalable way at the enterprise level. And so if you could talk about, I know there's several companies you have, but talk about Braintrust in particular, and Braintrust Air, the AI recruiting platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Braintrust back in 2018. So we've been hacking away here for a while. We started out as like a talent-owned marketplace. So it was focused initially just on kind of enterprise-grade technical talent. So think software engineers, product managers, designers, security engineers, AI engineers, and we would match them either for short contracts, long contracts, or full-time over to mostly Fortune 1000 companies. You mentioned some of our logos: Google, Bank of America, Nestle, Porsche, Nike, Volkswagen, and a bunch more. And that business grew really quickly when we started, because I don't know if you remember, back in 2018, 19, 20, there was this what they were calling a war for technical talent, right? Unless you were a big tech company, you just couldn't find these people. And so we plugged that gap in the market and grew pretty quickly to just, north of 100 million in revenue. And then, the interest rates shot up in 2022 and everybody went on a hiring freeze at the same time. It was horrifying. And so we're a software company at our core. I'm a software engineer by training. And so we started building AI tools to automate different pieces of the marketplace. So onboarding talent, screening talent, matching talent to opportunities, and then actually interviewing them live, like over video, like we are now. And all those tools culminated into what we call Braintrust Air. So we plug that into our marketplace, and it makes hiring much, much easier. It screens, you get a posted job on Monday morning, you get 1,000 applicants by Tuesday. This will sorts through and finds like the best 100 maybe that could be qualified for the job based on their skill and experience. And then actually reaches out and interviews them for you. And you preset the questions, or it'll come up with the questions for you. You can tweak them. But you set the criteria that you're looking for, and it will reach out and do a live video interview for 30, 45, maybe an hour. And during the interview, it's building a scorecard. So it's built on LLM technology. So it really understands what you're saying, what the candidate's saying. It's not just, read a question, record the answer, read a question, and then a human has to go watch all that video later. That's not what this is. So it does the interview, creates the scorecards, and then it hands back the best 5 or 6 or 7 back to the hiring manager. And then he or she can just pick it up and, post the job Monday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, you've got the best 5 already interviewed. Then you go talk to so you have 5 conversations instead of 50 or 75. And so it's a huge time saver. We started it with the very high tech roles that we specialize in at Braintrust. But then our clients were like, yeah, this is great, but what about hiring accountants and paralegals or warehouse workers or nurses or substitute teachers? These are all roles we now screen for, and we sell Braintrust there as a standalone product. Plugs right into your ATS, your careers page, and it can screen inbound candidates, or if it's like the nursing industry, there's a shortage of nurses, right?
Non-stop.
So nurses don't apply for jobs. Jobs apply to them, right? Yeah. And so Air will actually integrate with your ATS, text nurses that you have in your database, ask them if they're interested in a contract. If they say yes, it'll call their cell phone and talk to them for 10 minutes, and then push them through right back into your ATS, and say they're ready to take this contract. So that's Braintrust Air.
That's amazing. Adam, when you said they do like a video, is it an AI avatar that's interviewing them, or is it just like a blank screen with questions? What is that experience like for the candidate?
Yeah, so we tested quite a few options on that one. We tested an avatar, tested very poorly. It was very distracting to talk to something that looks like a human, and we're not trying to trick anybody, obviously.
Sure,
right?
sure.
But, so what ended up testing really well is it's our logo in the center of the screen. There's a waveform that moves as the AI speaks, and then the words the AI is speaking come out one at a time, so you can read and hear the interview at the same time, which is great if you're English as a second language, or maybe your hearing isn't great. It's really like adaptable that way.
Yeah. And then it sounds like when the nurses are reached out to, because as you said, jobs apply to nurses or positions, that is probably voice AI then that's doing that over the phone?
Yeah, that's all voice over cell phone, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So can you take us back to, because so many people are, think that AI came about in 2022 when ChatGPT, allowed public access. But these LLMs and the technology has been around since the early 2010s, if not earlier. When did you get involved with it and get access to it, I should say?
Yeah, so I mean, LLMs, the large language models built on artificial neural networks, those are relatively new. I would say 2020 is when GPT-2 came out, 2021. Not widely used and not particularly useful. They became really useful in like 22, 23. Yeah. But machine learning and transformer technology, you're right, has been around really for since the early 2010s. Not particularly useful for things other than statistical analysis, predictive analytics. So we have been using that for a while. But yeah, we were one of the first commercial applications to actually build on LLMs.
Yeah. And I guess the question was, how were you getting access? Were you building your own database, your own machine learning databases and programming on your own? Was that de novo, or were you able to tap into other existing, a university or something to rent time on their, how's that work? I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how did that work prior to 2022 or 2021 when when it started becoming democratized.
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff is open source. So you have to have a great AI engineer, which they're very expensive and hard to find these days. But we've got a handful on staff here that are phenomenal, and they'll build, an LLM itself. It's you're just talking to a big database essentially, and it might be telling you the right answer. It might not be. We built a very thick layer on top that ingests all the resumes we've ever seen, all the job posting, all the data that powered our marketplace for 3, 4, 5 years. We trained our interview layer air on all of those resumes, so it really knows what it's looking for. We train it on all these different roles, so it knows what questions to ask. What makes a nurse qualified for something or not, what makes a Java developer a good fit for Bank of America or a good fit for Google. So all that training sits above the LLM on our side.
Gotcha. And if and I don't want to. We're going to come back to Braintrust, but if we go back in time just a little bit, because you said you self-identified as a software engineer, but you're a serial entrepreneur. You are somebody who identifies a pain point and solves it. That's the definition of a serial entrepreneur, and you've done that many times. Now you're doing some angel investing, and I didn't list off the companies, but I've seen several of them, and you've got some great ones in your portfolio. Tell me about the telemedicine company that you formed and why. That's like telemedicine and recruiting seem very, very different.
Yeah. So Braintrust is actually my fourth venture-backed company. The first one was an online local shopping engine that allowed people to search on the web for products available in local brick and mortar stores. So it's like almost like e-commerce, but for local.
Okay.
Started out in 2004, grew it into a big marketplace, and were acquired by Intuit, where I worked as a product manager on the QuickBooks team for about a year or so. And Intuit's an awesome company to learn how to become a digital product manager. And then I started my second online marketplace called DriverSide, which connected car owners with mechanics that had excess capacity in their service bays. And then it would show you what a fair price for new brakes on your, 07 Camry should cost, right? And so we would connect. So it was kind of a lead gen business for mechanics.
Yeah.
That was acquired by Advanced Auto Parts, which is a big auto parts retailer back east. And so the theme, the kind of the through line is internet-enabled marketplaces that connect two parties for transaction. Doc R&M is a funny one. That one wasn't my idea. It came to me. My co-founder is Dr. Phil McGraw, Dr. Phil from TV, and he has this, at a time, the #1 daytime talk show.
Yeah.
Which was all around behavioral health issues mostly. And so he came to me with the idea of why can't we do, low acuity urgent care style medicine over video? People can, have a video visit, get a prescription for things that are, minor urgent care style stuff, or have a therapy session. And so we were the first ones to do live video HIPAA compliant telemedicine. This is before COVID. And then COVID really blew us up. We did like 3 years of business, in 3 months, when all the urgent cares were shut down. So so I was the product and tech CEO at that company. And, again, just connecting two parties digitally that need service. And then, then I kind of transitioned out of that. I was the CEO there for 4 years. We merged the company with another healthcare enterprise company that will hopefully go public here next year, and then started working on Braintrust.
Yeah. When you said like 3 months or 3 years of business, like in 3 months, did those urgent cares, did the providers come find you, or did you already have a relationship so that when COVID happened, because it happened pretty quickly, that you were able to just expand the service, or did you literally go sign up, or they signed up, that fast?
Yeah. So we had to scramble and sign up, thousands of doctors, but, wasn't that hard because everybody was home, so, and telemedicine in 2020 wasn't a new thing. It just wasn't mainstream yet. And COVID made it mainstream. And Dr. R&M's built into most insurance plans. So most people don't have to pay, or they pay a $10 copay or something. And so the insurance plans actually, were a big driver in helping drive awareness, let people know you can use this because your urgent care is closed.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I've used telemedicine for minor things, just with my regular primary care doctor, and it is so superior to get in the car, getting in the car, driving to the office, sitting there, waiting for the doc, going in, and for a non-urgent thing, it is so much more convenient.
Well, I have
And
3 little kids, so we use it all the time,
yeah,
unfortunately. But it
yeah,
it's a lot better than, having to take a day off work and disrupt your life, sit in a waiting room with sick people, that kind of stuff.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, if we go back to Braintrust, which of course, is growing, this is your focus right now as far as from an operating perspective. What what did you find to be the biggest challenge? Because every venture has, it's always twice as expensive and takes three times as long. But what did you find to be the biggest challenge in launching that particular venture?
Well, the talent marketplace that we initially started with, and we still run that business, it just doesn't really grow that much, because the demand for engineers is way down compared to 5 years ago. Again, largely because of AI.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so starting that business wasn't hard. We just had good timing. Where it's a lot of this is luck, right? Timing and luck. Um, and then when the hiring freeze set in 22 and 23, that was a struggle. So we had to figure out, what are we going to do here? And the kind of the writing was on the wall for like, well, AI agents are finally here, will be here. And so that gave us the impetus to build Air to make recruiting, totally revolutionized and AI powered and much faster and easier for both candidates and hiring managers. The struggle though, it's like, I describe the service, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but when we sell into staffing firms or big enterprises, it's often the first AI tool they're actually implementing,
Mm,
other than, everybody's got his ChatGPT license, right? But,
yep.
ChatGPT is sort of it's like a glorified Wikipedia kind of, right? It's like a Wikipedia you can talk to. Now there's deep research and those things are more useful to go search the web and do things for you. But, so, it's a challenge because companies will say, okay, this sounds good, but like, will people really do this? Like one of the big hurdles we had, because we were a big vendor to staffing industry. Staffing industry is just, they churn talent, right? It's just, that's their constant business. And so the biggest role in the company is recruiter. And this thing, can really augment recruiting. So, the biggest hurdle was like, will nurses actually talk to this thing, or we knew software engineers would talk to it. Like software engineers kind of get it. They're like, yeah, what I'm talking, I understand how this works. But to have Uber drivers or warehouse workers or substitute teachers or nurses to actually use it, so we run a free trial period, and we just say, hey, plug it in, give it a few job recs, let it do its thing, and compare it to how you're doing things today. And so that
Yeah,
that kind of gets you over the hump, but it's it's a process.
yeah. And you're also going into HR departments, I'm sure, that they're very protective around their process, around their, we have our culture. The reason we have our culture is because of the way we hire. And so you're having to interject in there, which can't be easy, I would imagine.
Yeah, and on the culture piece, like it's AI can't determine culture fit, at
Yeah,
least not now.
not yet.
And so the way we position this is like, look, if you have all these people that are doing nothing but 30, 40, 50 phone screens or Zoom screens a day, and it's the same questions over and over, and it's like, that's not work that's A, particularly fun, or B, particularly well suited for a human, right? But an AI can do the same interview over and over and over, never get tired, be totally unbiased, give everyone a fair shot who deserves a fair shot. And so what you end up doing is you look at the Air looks at and interviews candidates that you would have never seen, right? Because you're looking at 1,000 resumes. You're not, you're just going to interview until you find the one, and then you're going to stop. So, so then we say, look, we're going to free up a bunch of time for your recruiters to go make the culture better and do things that can help your employees thrive. That's the reason people get into HR, is to, make the most important part of the company, the human capital, make that part better.
This segment is sponsored by Rockbox Fitness Franchising. Take control of your destiny and join the boutique fitness revolution with Rockbox Fitness. If you're ready to make a real impact in your community and own your own business that empowers people to achieve their best life, then Rockbox is the opportunity you've been looking for. They provide comprehensive support from site selection, upfit, training, and turnkey marketing, so you can open your studio with confidence and a strong recurring revenue member base. Visit rockboxfitness.com and click on franchise opportunities to learn more about this exciting venture in the fast-growing boutique fitness industry. It's time to turn your passion for fitness and for business into a thriving venture. What would you say then is that what's the next evolution of this in the industry, not just Braintrust Air, but in the industry from an AI, specifically if we're talking about recruiting human capital? What do you see as the next iteration?
Yeah, so we're actually building. We haven't talked a lot about this publicly, but I'll mention it here. So, I started looking at Braintrust Air being deployed, and I said, there's going to be an agent for accounting, and an agent for customer service, and an agent for invoicing and bookkeeping, and one for fulfillment, and one to manage time card. There's going to be all these agents, and there's all these startups building these like kind of point solution agents. And I've been selling enterprise software long enough to where I realize the way this movie is likely to play out is, enterprise is going to have 15, 20 different agents from different companies, and none of them are going to talk to each other, and there's no orchestration layer. And then 2 years later, we're going to go through a vendor consolidation process, which is always painful. And so we started building about 9 months ago what we called AI Factory. So we call it Braintrust Nexus. And what it does, it's a software piece. It's a big piece of software that you could think of as a factory. The inputs of the factory are a documented business process, say getting invoices paid, or paying talent, or doing procurement, or managing time cards, or you name it, any kind of mid or back office process. And then it outputs automated workflows and clones of Braintrust Air to do those different jobs. And then it basically can automate like a whole 10, 12, 15 step business process.
Yeah.
And the software is written by the AI factory, not people. And so it can generate, we generate the factory runs. It takes an hour, instead of 4 or 5 months of people programming it. So it's pretty revolutionary. We are working mostly with the staffing industry right now on, anything that you have a bunch of humans sort of download this from Salesforce, type this in manually, upload it, the Excel file to Workday, all these different systems. So we've now automated that kind of whole back office process. And that's where I think things are going, because the factory builds all the agents custom. They work just for your business, and they all talk to each other, right? We have an automation orchestration layer there. So I think that's kind of where the future is going for agents.
So you're building this factory, though, is still geared towards staffing companies. Now it handles their back office, invoice, and different things like that. But your, if I heard you correctly, your application and your agent that you'll be building, this force of agents, is for a particular industry, but you're not necessarily going after the automotive industry or the restaurant industry, whatever. It sounds like you're still very focused on recruiting.
Yeah. So it'll work in any office, any enterprise setting, anywhere where someone is like sitting in front of a computer, just interacting with software packages all day, like a digitally native role. This is perfect for. So it'll work in any company. We found the most sort of demand and willingness to adopt in the staffing industry, because it's generally lower margins, a lot of OpEx, just a lot of manual processes. And so that's where we're focused on serving that industry right now, but it'll work, really anywhere. But we found big enterprises are a little more cautious about this right now and are a little slower to adopt, but they'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So more mid-market right now is really, yeah. If you could give advice to a small business owner, because there's a lot of small, mid-sized business owners that listen to this show, and which is very different than a Fortune 500 enterprise. And there were 3 2, 4, I don't know if there's a magic number, but let's just say 3 immediate actions that they should take with AI, especially maybe an AI agent. They probably don't have the expertise to build it, but they can have somebody build it. What 3 functions, if you run a small business, you have 15, 20 employees, this generic question, of course, but just pick an industry. What if you were a consultant for that small business? What would be the first 3 things you'd say? Hey man, like this is ridiculous. Get an AI agent built so that it can do this.
Absolutely. So anything where you're seeing a lot of repetitive actions your people are doing, and it's sort of a discrete task. That could be interviewing candidates. So I would plug Braintrust Aaron if you interview a lot of people. So if
Sure.
if you're in a high churn retail environment, maybe, or call centers, customer service, um, or like back office operations where you're processing invoices and submitting them to 10 or 12 different ERPs, that's great work for an AI agent. Customer service, frontline level 1 customer service, great use of AI. But anything you can document the task, even if it's a complex one, right? There's could be 50 rules, if then else rules.
Yeah.
AI agents are great for those kinds of things.
Gotcha. And my experience has been that people are not adopting them nearly as quickly as they should. I'd love to get your thoughts on why. If you're seeing the same thing, and why.
Yeah, it's because it's still too complicated. There's some large enterprise platforms, Agentforce, ServiceNow. They're just catering to these very, very large companies, and the progress is slow, but it's built for that. There's not a lot of players in the mid-market or SMBs yet. I really think, OpenAI and Anthropic and Google will probably get there. They're certainly trying. Just that this stuff just doesn't work yet.
Yeah, I've tried to build a Google agent, didn't to do a certain task, and I thought either I suck or this isn't ready yet.
No,
I don't know. Yeah,
it's not you, it's them.
Yeah.
We've been so disappointed in. I don't mean to speak ill of Google. Their friends work there, and they're a big client of Braintrust. We staff a lot of, but like the Gemini technology, I think they've done a decent job building it into their search engine. So you see that box at the top now that kind of tries to answer the question for you, and cites it. That's pretty useful. But we pay for the Google Workspace where it hosts our email, our Google Drive, our calendar. And it's like, look, guys, you have all my data,
Yeah.
do something with it, and
Yeah.
I think it's the DNA over there is understandably like they have big firewalls between those products. And,
Yeah.
I think, I'm begging Gemini to just ingest my 20 years of email and give me something valuable. Like I was trying to, the other day, I was like, tell me how many hours was I in the air last year? All my receipts are in Gmail, right? We should be able to, and it made up a number that was wildly wrong. And then I asked it, like, show me the flights. And it's like, I don't know. I'm like, take my data. But that's their culture there, is that they're really pretty privacy sensitive over there. So that kind of makes the experience suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've, with Braintrust, you're moving very quickly, but you've done this before with, as you said, the 3 companies before. What did you have to learn or maybe unlearn as you founded Braintrust? Because experience, I always joke that wisdom is the knowledge wisdom is the knowledge you get 5 minutes after you needed it. That's why they call it wisdom.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. And so what'd you have to learn or unlearn before you did Braintrust?
I would say unlearn is an interesting question. I probably don't know what I should have unlearned yet. Probably a lot. But one thing that I've sort of always known, but have been painfully reminded of with this one is sales cycles are always longer than you think they should be. They just are, and unless you're pure consumer, then, you can whatever, but consumer's tough. But it takes 3 weeks to get the initial meeting, and then they're going to think about it for a month, and then you're going to get them into a trial, and that'll go a month, and then they're going to think about it some more. And, it's like, it's things that you think should take a month are going to take 6 months. And so you have to be really mindful of that as you manage cash burn, runway, that kind of stuff.
That is, listeners, that is an entire semester in the top MBA program right there. Like, because all of your pro formas, all of my pro formas always assume even, a decently longer sales cycle, and then it always ends up being longer, always.
Totally.
Because we're seeing it from our eyes of, well, why wouldn't you buy this? It only makes it, you're losing money every day you don't buy this and you don't implement it. But it's, you have it. So Adam just gave you gold right there. Make sure you have the cash surplus that can get you through that,
That's
because
right. And
that's why
really,
these.
like, you really got to empathize with your customer. There's a reason these things take long. It's not because they're stupid, right?
Yeah.
These company, if you're a big company, even a mid-market company, you're not stupid. You're good at what you do. But the fact that you run a business, it means you're good at what you do. And so these people, where it comes down to is risk tolerance and adversity to change management, and you know, the little bit of luck we have right now is like, because AI is such a hot topic and all the boards around the country and all the C-suites are saying, go do AI. Like what, like you're saying earlier, what the hell does that mean? Do AI. And they're trying to figure out how do we do AI other than like asking ChatGPT a question and maybe it's wrong, um, and so yeah, they're being, these enterprise clients and mid-market clients are being inundated with pitches, and a lot of this stuff doesn't work, right? It's vaporware. I mean, we just signed the largest staffing company in the world recently, and just got onboarded onto their platform, and they came to us and we said, "How'd you find us?" And they said, "Well, their chief digital officer was told by their CEO, go find an AI recruiter that's real.
Hmm.
Just that it just has to be real." They were like, "Well, you were the only one we found that actually works." And so, it's like these guys have to spend all this time evaluating all these tools, and most of them don't really work. And so it's a crowded space out there. So you just got to be patient, right? Just
Yeah.
persistence is all it is.
Yeah. As you've done well, and had success with these companies that you've founded, and then some have been acquired, it looks like you've started to take some of your personal capital and invest it as an angel investor in, I think there's 45 plus companies. A couple questions around that. One, how do you evaluate a company? Two, what do you need to see the founder say, do, be, act like, whatever, to really get your interest? And then, so evaluating the company or the opportunity, I guess, then the founder or founders. And then that third leg, I guess, would be their assumptions, because they probably are assuming a much shorter size sales cycle and all that stuff. So just as an angel investor, a lot of times those people are mentors to the young founders. I would love to understand how you go about evaluating the opportunity, the founders, and then just helping them understand this isn't going to be as easy as they thought it may
Yeah.
be.
Well, I mean, if they need me to tell them that, then I'm not doing the deal, right? Because this is not going to work, and that there's no
Yeah.
reason for me to be involved. First time, but you do see first time founders with this, like, like, so I look for a couple things. One is like the right balance between, so your mindset, what you think is true has to be somewhere between reality and complete delusional. It can't be totally delusional, but you can't live in reality either, right? So you have to have the right balance of cognitive dissonance, the strong conviction that what you think should exist that doesn't will exist at some point, right? And I had this with video medicine. It was like people we were met with such skepticism early on with that one, and it was, we've just kind of one foot in front of the other, brick by brick, and then COVID happens. Now it's obvious, right? And so you have to have that conviction that what you're building obviously will exist someday, and the founder has to sort of live in this version of the world where it already does exist. So that's a special level of cognitive dissonance. The second one is, um, like, I call this almost like the psycho factor. Like, you're so maniacal about executing this thing and nothing will stop you, right? Like, you're undeterred. People will tell you you're stupid. It's a stupid idea. It's not gonna work. And you're just unfazed by that. So that's the second one. And then the third one is really important. I've learned this over time the hard way. Um, companies can only do well with constraints. So
Mm,
you need to be, and I would say financially constrained is the most powerful one.
yeah.
I've done this, I've seen it, I've raised too much money, I've seen people raise too much money, and they're like, well, we have like, 10, 20 years of runway, we'll be fine. And you lose the sense of urgency. If you're
Yeah.
not running, and I still to this day, and it's just like a personality flaw or some kind of psychosis I live with, but it works. It's not a wonderful way to live your life, but it does work. Where I
Yeah.
wake up every day almost panicked, right? Like I have like a mild level of anxiety that is inescapable
Yeah.
around, are we moving fast enough? Are we
Mm,
shipping fast enough? Are we selling fast enough? What could we do to ship faster, sell faster? I'm obsessed with it. And
yep.
like, we have plenty of money. We're not going to run out of money, but I always feel like we're going to run out of money. Right.
Yep.
And so, or that we're, this AI agent space is a land grab. Are we grabbing land fast enough? And so you need to operate with that burning urgency and paranoia. And it sounds unpleasant because it is unpleasant, but if you're taking 6, 8 weeks of vacation and, working 30, 40 hours a week, this is not the job for you.
No, no, not at all. I, I do, man. What you've just said, I've said this so many times, but speed wins. And I think people always think, well, there's tomorrow. And I found this, I was in corporate America for 25 years before I became an entrepreneur. And it was just always well, let's set up a meeting to kind of start talking about that. Kind of really reflecting back to what you said earlier about the sales cycle. Not dumb people, very, very intelligent people, different timeline than an entrepreneur is on. And
Intelligence has so little to do with this, to be honest.
yeah,
I don't know any dumb CEOs, or founders,
yeah,
entrepreneurs, but they're not all Elon. I'm
sure,
certainly not.
sure,
I mean, so
sure.
it's really like, you can't be a moron, but you don't have to be that smart. You do have to be psychotically driven, though.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. So where do you see, and I want to talk a little bit, if you want to, if you're comfortable with it, is talk a little bit about like blockchain, the open source, right? This more open source approach, and just get your thoughts on that, because it seems like that's another thing where people are like, yep, we're all about the blockchain, public ledger, sounds great, but other than like crypto or maybe some ether contracts, like it doesn't seem to be rapidly being adopted by the business community. And love to get your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, so we actually started. That was kind of one of the unique twists of Braintrust when we started, was instead of so we launched with a token, the Braintrust token, and what we use it to this day, what we use it for, we use it to bootstrap liquidity on the marketplace. So if you invite talent that end up signing up, completing a profile, they get some tokens, and you go trade these tokens on Coinbase. You could sell them for cash if you want to. If you refer a client, you refer Nike, and Nike starts transacting, you're going to get a percentage of Nike's billings kicked back to you automatically by the software in the form of the Braintrust token. So it was a really powerful way. It's one of the reasons we grew so fast. And now we have,
Yeah.
1.8 million community members, many of whom have tokens, have earned tokens for doing things with the community. And so now our main growth driver is AI, has nothing to do with the token, but that's how we got started, and it works pretty well. There's a bunch of things I would have done differently
Like
around.
what? I would love to know. That's because I
Well,
think this is even less understood than AI.
yeah. So we raised our venture funding by selling tokens instead of equity, and so we have dozens and dozens of venture firms that have, from Cotu and Tiger, Homebrew and True Ventures, and some great venture for blockchain, Acme. And so they bought tokens, and we, we raised a Series B in November of 2021. It's probably like the day before the NASDAQ top ticked. It's just raised too much money. And then what happened was, a lot of our kind of blockchain based investors, they went under in 22 and 23. So they became forced sellers. So you got forced sellers in a low liquidity environment. That sucks, so the price is always going down, and that's a bummer for everybody. And we raised more money than we needed to. And that was like, we could have built this business with 25 million. We didn't need 100. And so then you've got all these forced sellers out there. And then the other piece was like, this one didn't hamper us as much, but I've seen it be an impediment in other businesses. Is like people still don't know what tokens are, right? They kind of get Bitcoin. Bitcoin's broken out. It's like, okay, digital gold, probably not going away. But anything else, it's like crypto's just associated with scams or the FTX debacle.
Yep.
I always when FTX collapsed, I was like, man, I'm feeling lucky. Like I didn't invest in FTX. I didn't use the exchange. I didn't hold any of their token. I was like, I'm going to be fine. But no, none of us were fine. That thing knocked, it took 10 years out of all of us.
Yeah.
And so look, I think the Braintrust token is not an important part of our growth story now, but it did help us grow in the beginning. But to your earlier point, like I'm not seeing it adopted. Blockchain technology is really not being adopted anywhere but outside of finance. I think decentralized finance, DeFi, is incredibly interesting. We're going to bring real world assets onto the blockchain, bring liquidity to currently illiquid things. I think that's an awesome killer use case for blockchain. Might be the only one.
Yeah. I'd love to just go back a half a step here because I kind of understand blockchain and tokens. I own some Bitcoin and Ether just to hedge, but this is fascinating to me. So you raised money without giving up equity. You tied it to a token, and I'm trying to understand how that token has implicit value.
So great question. It's a big part of the story I actually skipped over. So the token is distributed to people who do measurably helpful things like refer talent, refer clients, and then we use a portion of the profits of the business to buy tokens out of the open market, right? So the bigger the business grows, the more dollars go to buy the token, and they get taken out of circulation. They go to what's called a DAO, an on-chain wallet. If you go to info.braintrust.com, you could see, I think something like $12 or $13 million so far has gone to repurchasing these tokens, and it takes them out of circulation. So that the operations of our business create the economic demand for the token, and then it's distributed to people who verifiably help the network. So that's how our token economy works.
So if you're, that is freaking amazing. All right. So you go out, you raise money, you say, look, I'm just going to make up some numbers here. For a $10 million investment, you're not getting X amount of the company percent wise, but you're going to get this many tokens. We're going to create a market for these tokens because the bigger we grow, the more we're going to just buy these tokens out of the open, almost like a stock buyback, for said another way, which will raise the price of the token because there's less supply, and we're going to create the demand. And if you're an investor, you decide when you want to sell that token. You may want to wait until we've bid it up so much because we keep buying back so much, or if you're ready to take some money off the table and triple your money, whatever, instead of waiting for it to quintuple, it's your choice. But you don't have to wait for a liquidity event to get your money back out.
That's exactly right.
Dude, that is brilliant. That is just...
Well, jury's out still, but it is an elegant design, and I think once the company grows big enough, I think it will have proven to be what it does is it allows employees, contributors, community members to all have skin in the game, right? Yeah. And you can't have 300,000 people on a cap table of a Delaware C corp, but you can have millions of token holders all over the world getting a little piece for making their contribution.
Yeah. And you and either partners or financial, you still own 100% of the company. That's
we do. Yeah. And we've never sold equity. So the company itself doesn't really have value. It's the token network is the valuable piece. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Right. Thank you for that and explaining that to me. I'm sure there's some listeners that were hoping I would ask that question because they weren't following along, and I wasn't either. So I wanted to get that clear.
We probably put some people to sleep with that one, but it is novel. Yeah, I'll give you that. It's novel.
Super cool. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. You know, the latest data shows a large amount of small to mid-sized business owners are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is not why you started a business in the first place. We all start businesses to create the freedom in our lives that we want and to give us options. But to do that, you need more leads, and you need to turn those prospects into long-term paying customers. Well, the solution is ThriveMore Autopilot. ThriveMore Autopilot is the turnkey solution to take the stress and the hard work out of new customer acquisition, which is the lifeblood of any small business. ThriveMore Autopilot works on your behalf to generate a waterfall of new leads through various channels, to nurture those leads with proprietary AI solutions that mimic human interaction, to sell memberships and help you increase your monthly recurring revenue, and they even provide you coaching and your team coaching on the most effective sales techniques and give you a community of other like-minded business owners. ThriveMore Autopilot is how you scale your business without stress and the relentless phone calls and texts and reach outs to the prospects to get them to show up for that first appointment or to show up to that call. So learn how ThriveMore Autopilot can help you win big by going to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot, the strategic partner for small to mid-sized business owners to help you scale and live the life of your dreams. So you talked about how you evaluate in venture capital, how you their maniacal tendency towards getting things done and execution. This between reality and delusional. If you were to give the younger you, because you've been through this several times, if you were to give the younger you and you go back, see your 20-year-old self, probably still in school, and you could have 5 minutes with him and give him some advice, life advice, and maybe it's not business advice. What advice would you give him?
Well, the first thing I would say is take every dollar you can find and take out loans and just buy Bitcoin and don't do anything else.
Yeah. No shit.
That's the glib answer. The real answer,
yeah.
I would say there's so much of the paranoia and anxiety and stuff that maybe I didn't need to feel it as much, but I truly believe it got me here. So I wouldn't talk myself out of that. What I would actually encourage my younger self to do is have no fear. The only thing that holds any of us back is fear of failure, right?
You're right.
And if you see some of the greats like Elon, that guy fears nothing. He should
swings for the
probably
fences.
should, right?
Yeah.
He's nuts. But but you can see what's unique about him, other than being hyper intelligent, is he fears nothing, right? He probably doesn't even feel pain. And so when you have no fear, you really just get there faster. And I learned that a couple of years ago, where it's what's the worst that what's the worst that can happen, right? Just take the shot, go get out there and learn and experiment. Don't overanalyze things. But the reason the main thing holding all of us back is fear. So I would try to ingrain that in my younger self.
You nailed it. It's the only thing standing between us and our dream life is fear. And it's once you get past that, which is not easy, as you said, it's not easy, but
it's a daily mantra, right? Some days you wake up and you're like, man, I don't want to do any of this today.
Exactly.
It's you see no fear.
Yeah, exactly. I always ask the last, before we find out how people can contact you and work with you, I always ask my guests really a set of 3 questions that's just fun because it helps me and the listeners understand you even better, and it's also gives them a recommendation. So the first one is, from a reading perspective, my listeners know I'm an avid reader. Is there a book that you read, could be last week, it could be 20 years ago, that when you read it and you put it down, Adam, you said, "Whew, that's going to permanently change the way I look at this, or I am changing behavior to do XYZ instead of the ABC I was doing"? Is there any, and I'm sure you've read, hundreds, but is there one that you would recommend to the readers that's just great?
I'm going to just have to do a couple, if that's
sure.
okay.
Sure.
Because I do a book a week.
Yeah.
And so they're not all great, but the one that instantly when you asked that question came to mind is I read this probably 15 years ago now. It's called Venture Deals by Brad Feld. if you never raise venture capital, don't bother reading this book. But if you ever raise so much as a seed round, read that book twice. And it will teach you, because venture capitalists do deals. That's all they do, right? They do but when you raise venture as a founder, you're only going to do this 2, 3, 4 times probably. I've done it 10 times, unfortunately. But and when you read that book, it'll make you so much better in negotiating, understanding the terms, all that stuff.
And
That's the first one.
Venture what?
Venture Deals.
Venture Deals. Okay.
By Brad Feld, who's a phenomenal investor out in Colorado. The other one, then there's two. So I love to read biographies of great people, or even not great people, just to see, like, to really learn how can I upgrade my capabilities by learning from them. And so the two, I've read almost all of them, but the two that come to mind that were most impactful for me were there's one on J.D. Rockefeller, and just his roots. He grew up in Cleveland, the same place I did, and then just how he built the empire, what his personality was like, and he was a controversial figure, obviously, but that, like, his work ethic and dedicate, like, I learned. That book changed me. And then the second one that really changed me was Isaacson's profile of Elon Musk that came out a year and a half or 2 ago. And it's not a flattering book. Elon wasn't pleased with it. It's accurate from as best I could tell. Isaacson's a genius. But it was, if I remember, so I read it. It was like it changed my personality. It made me a better business person, a better CEO, a better operator. And I remember Isaacson going on a press tour when the book came out, and he's like, by the way, this book is not meant to be a how-to guide for young psychopaths. It's meant to be a warning to not act like this guy. You're not Elon. You didn't build Tesla. And the funny thing is, and I know I talked to friends of mine who are CEOs who've read the book, and they're like, oh, it's a how-to guide.
Yeah.
You don't have to be mean. You have to mistreat people. You don't have to be, call people pedophiles on Twitter and stuff like that. None of that's necessary. But the work ethic that guy has, sleeping on the factory floors, firing all the engineers when the Starlink satellite was 20 times bigger than it needed to be. Like, it's just, it teaches you that no fear kind of mentality.
And absolute penchant for execution and speed.
100%.
Yeah, like that's it's so funny you say that. I've read that Isaacson's book on Steve Jobs, which was outstanding, and then I went back just recently this year and read Isaacson's book on Benjamin Franklin. I learned more about Benjamin Franklin than I ever did in school by reading his book.
Awesome,
and have so much more respect for him. And I'm in the middle of Einstein's right now, which Isaacson wrote, which is pretty heavy on, like, the theories and all that stuff. Which I don't need to know all that stuff. I just want to know about the guy. But yeah, you're right. He's such a gifted author, a biographer, just a gifted biographer, that you really get inside the person's head. You are that person while you're reading the book.
The thing that I totally agree, and I love those books. The thing that was different about Isaacson's Elon book is Isaacson spent 2 years with him.
Yeah.
Every day, every meeting, every meltdown. And so, like, that, he couldn't have done that with Franklin or Einstein or Jobs. But so it's that book's unique in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for those recommendations. Second to last question is, if we fast forward to the end of your life, Adam, and you've done it, and I can only imagine the best is yet to come, just based on this conversation. But we know how this movie ends for all of us. At some point, when this movie ends and the music stops. So if we're at your funeral and a loved one is reading your eulogy, but he or she only has the opportunity to say 3 words about you, they don't have to make a sentence or a cute phrase, just 3 words, 3 descriptors maybe, that describe you. How do you hope, or what do you hope that person says? What 3 words do you hope that person chooses that describes your impact on them and life and the world?
He was a great dad. That's 4 words.
That's fine.
I don't give a shit about legacy. I don't care. Once I'm gone, no one's going to give a shit. Most people don't give a shit even when you're here. No one cares about what you're doing. Legacy is stupid, in my opinion. what is there 5-6 people in the world that we look back on and like, who cares?
Yeah.
We just mentioned them just now,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
we are not those people, right? We would
Yeah.
have known by now if we were. I
Yeah.
don't care what anyone thinks about me, what I did, what I accomplished, because none of it'll matter. Like
Yeah.
we are on this logarithmic technology path. We're all going to be, living on fission reactors in space in 50 years, and nothing we do here matters.
Yeah.
I care that my kids thought I was a good dad.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. You're a brother from another mother, because I feel the same exact way. And our kids are our legacy. That's our legacy,
That's right.
And
That's right.
raising, responsible people, responsible human beings. Yeah. And it's, I'll just share this with you. I went through this year-long leadership academy, just finished back in February. And they talked about legacy and talk about how many decades we have left to really get stuff done. They asked us to think, to write down our parents' name, of course, then our grandparents' names, then our great-grandparents' names, and then our great-great-grandparents' names, and nobody could. This was like 32 CEOs, smart people, some from really good families, and nobody could write down their great-great-grandparents.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
So I mean, you talk about we're a flash in the pan. So if you're worried about what people a generation from now are going to think of you, don't worry, they won't.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
And if your own family can't remember you, ain't nobody else will.
Exactly.
About it.
Yeah, it was humbling. My friend.
Yeah.
And then this is the last fun question. If I were to give you a magic wand, and you're deep into this technology space, and certainly a leader in AI from true business applications, but I were to give you a magic wand, and you could make one change to the world, the way people are, the way the world operates, the way humans are, whatever it may be. If I gave you that magic wand and you wave that tonight, Adam, we wake up tomorrow, how is the world different according to you?
Well, that one's easy for me. It would be free, unlimited energy. That solves all problems, right? Then you can grow food unlimited for free. You solve starvation. You can power these AIs to get better. You can, people can. The price of everything goes down when you have free, unlimited, clean, hopefully clean energy.
Yeah.
That we will get there. I think we'll see it in our lifetimes, and that will be the most important change in the world.
Man, that's a very insightful answer. I am definitely long on. In fact, I'm looking at rebalancing some of my portfolio to get longer on energy, because it's being consumed at an unheralded rate right now, and it's only going up. It's only going up.
Demand's outstripping supply.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, most important question, and one I've just thoroughly enjoyed this. Most important question is, how can people follow you, connect with you, be part of your journey, and even get a hold of you if their company needs help?
Yeah, sure. So I I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn.
Sure.
I always say one of my career goals is to become so successful that I could just quit LinkedIn. But anyway, I post a lot on there. I try to share things that I learned on there. And so you can hit me on there, or it's email me, adam@usebraintrust.com. I don't post much on Twitter. I'm more of a spectator there, but
sure.
But yeah, I'm old, so I use email.
There we go. I love it. My friend, I have really enjoyed this, and you're incredibly bright, and you also really helped me, and I'm sure the listeners, understand some more of these more complex topics, and just broke it down. So thank you so much for your time, man.
Likewise, Ravi. This was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you bet. To everyone else listening, Adam dropped some wisdom bombs on this show, and just some different approaches, especially from raising capital, I never even thought of. So if you enjoy this, share this episode with a friend, a family member, a colleague who could benefit, and maybe even work with Adam to help recruit and help their company. Until next time, set your intentions for the day and strive to thrive. Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.